Hello, Internet. My name is Tyler Cutterback. I am the founder of Let's Go to College Educational Consultants and the host of the How Do I Get That Job podcast. You have tuned into the third episode of the How Do I Get That Job podcast here on YouTube. We actually just released episode 8 on a bunch of different streaming services. All those are going to be down in the description for you. But this is actually coming out a little later than it was supposed to. It was supposed to come out on Wednesday. It's now Friday. I don't know if you can tell by the sound of my voice. I'm very nasally and congested. I just got hit with a 1-2 punch of allergies and head cold. So I'm a little behind on my release schedule. I apologize, guys. I appreciate the patience. So this will be going up on Friday instead of Wednesday, but you can expect episode 4 of the YouTube version of this podcast to go up next Wednesday, and episode 9 of the How Do I Get That Job podcast on all of the audio-based versions of the podcast to go up that Wednesday as well. I want to say thank you to Bethany College of West Virginia for providing a pennant. I'll be giving them a bigger shout out in the College Concepts video to be released on Monday. Sickness is no excuse to not get work done. So you may notice here that I am wearing my Pitt Greensburg admissions shirt like I used to wear when I worked for Pitt. I am going to actually be visiting them today to tour the Hurl Laboratory. Kind of redundant because the L in Hurl is laboratory, but that's fine. So that I can do an interview with 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 if I'm lucky, researchers there for some of the really cool biomedical engineering stuff that they are doing. So I really hope that you guys look forward to that. That's going to be episode 13 coming out in like a month or so. Ooh, I'm really congested. So I hope you enjoy this episode. For the full version of this, if you kind of like the highlights reel here and want to go see the full episode, you can do that down in the description. Thanks again. Enjoy.
I've been there about 6 years, and every day is a different work day for me. I help people find information, find books, research their family history, and figure out puzzles that they can use maps and books and archive collections to solve.
Puzzles, that's really cool. What do you mean by puzzles? Is it just the maps themselves, or like, how would you propose a puzzle to somebody?
We get a lot of long lost, missing relatives. How does someone find some relative that they didn't think survived the war and they did survive, but how do you go about finding someone today? Sometimes we get people in who want to delve into the mystery of what life was like a couple hundred years ago and how they can get into that world in the library is what we help them figure out. In my case, I had graduated college and I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do, and I was working a few different jobs, and I was really into the 2 TV shows, Who Do You Think You Are and Finding Your Roots. So I would watch those TV shows, and I liked the storyline and how the celebrity would find clues in their family history and go to some different archive to put together pieces of the puzzle. And I thought that the people who did that were called archivists. So I applied to library grad school, and I started off thinking that I was going to be an archivist until I got into more classes and realized that the archivist is the person who takes all the old papers and figures out what they are and makes a nice index. But the reference librarian is the guy who welcomes people into the library and listens to their story and suggests places where they can go and look, which is exactly what I felt I wanted to do. Well, for a while, the digitization has been a big deal in library archives. If the whole point of a library is to connect people to information, after a while, it doesn't really matter what format that's in. It doesn't have to be a book. It doesn't have to be a printed page, right? So it's really cool now to think about how are other ways that we can connect people to the information we have, so that they don't necessarily have to come in person to the library and check out a book.
Interesting.
How can we make things into a digital format so that people can search for words that are on a page that's scanned into a database? More contemporary, a lot of interesting things are also happening with virtual reality.
Really?
So yeah, like if you have some rare old museum objects or old books that you don't want the public to handle every day, how could you create a virtual reality exhibit or space to show those books or old objects in some sort of historical setting where people could go into a virtual world and not damage antiques and old books with their hands? I'll say it this way. I encourage young people to think about what's interesting to them and try to find a way to study parts of their coursework that are interesting to them instead of going after the things that seem cool and high tech. So when I got into library school, it was exactly at this time when digitizing everything was really big and working with computer models and learning programming was really big. And I'm glad that I took time to study some of that. But a lot of what was more meaningful to me were the classes that I picked because they called to me in some way that I felt was interesting or how my personality related to people. So that's the advice I would say for someone who might go into library school soon or information science school soon is learn what's happening in the world and what's current, yes, but don't go after flashy high-tech study unless that's exactly what you want to do.
Think long term.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being with us today.
No problem.
Have a great day.
Bye.